Hello and welcome to a new season of the Wolves Report. I'm Ryan Lester and thank you for joining us for episode 67. Delighted to be joined by club captain, Mr. Dependable himself, Nocky. Tyler's on holiday. And also delighted to have Mirror Footballs and Mirror Sports, Ben Husband. Good evening, gentlemen. Tonight we'll be doing our best to analyse the Luton game, that classic 0-0 pre-season friendly at Molineux. I want to talk about Fabio Silva and wax a little bit about him. Slight change to the show. Going to drop the bomb in regarding Jeff Shee's letter, get the guys' opinions on that. I know I've been talking on air. I'm not sure we'll get the same version, but I'm looking forward to hearing what the guys have got to say about that. Take some of your questions and look ahead to the game against Stade Rennais on Saturday at Molineux. Let's start off with the game last night, Nocky. We were both there. It was a captivating 0-0 draw where it finished. Wolverhampton Wanderers 0, Luton Town 0. Nocky, your initial take on the game?
I actually quite enjoyed it. I don't know if it's I've been starved of football for a few months, but I quite enjoyed the game. I thought we started relatively well. We seemed to play on the front foot. Some nice passing, nice interplay. I thought there was definitely some positives in terms of Silva. He looked really sharp. Sasa Kalajdzic, again, he needs a bit of time to settle, but you can see that there's definitely a player there. So I was relatively pleased with the performance. It's just the same old issues that we can't put the ball in the back of the net. But there was a couple of things that concern me, and I think it kind of follows on from the Celtic game that we got caught out too often from a ball over the top, just a simple dink forward. And I know it's only pre-season, you don't read too much into it, but seems to be a little bit of a pattern developing in that sense. We seem to be doing that quite often. But I thought play-wise, we were the better team. The only threat they really had was Ryan Giles, who put some absolutely fantastic balls in the box. But other than that, he didn't do a great deal. It was pretty much their first team as well, so I think they're in all kinds of trouble this season. But I thought we were the better team. We played some decent stuff. And we had 3 or 4 sitters. I mean, Sarabia's had a header from 4 yards that he's got to score. Sasha's had one from 7 yards that he's tried to take the net off instead of just placing it. Hwang's had one over his shoulder that he should have finished. And Silva had a decent effort that the keeper saved. So we've had opportunities to win the game. We just haven't put the ball in the back of the net. But you'd like to think after a bit of a little bit more work together, a little bit more time, the players coming into it, I think some of them chances will go in. But it's an issue that it's haunted us for a while that we need to rectify.
I mean, we will dig into the performance a little bit more after I got Ben's take, but one thing I would say to that, Nocky, is I'd rather be disappointed that we're missing chances than disappointed we created nothing. So I think that there is some positives to take, and I didn't think I'd be saying that from a 0-0 with Luton. Ben, hope you've had a good summer. Thank you for joining us this evening. Following on from Nocky, really interested in your take on the Luton game.
Yeah, I'm pretty similar, to be honest. Last night, the quality of chances that Wolves had, they did well to not score. Like, if they played that match another 10 times, they'd probably score 2 or 3. So I'm not overly concerned that they didn't score last night, because it was still pretty dominant over a side that they should be dominant. And I think it was just, for me, it was just a little bit of reassurance that however negative this summer's been, which will come on to the negativity, they are still better than, in my opinion, they'll be better than at least 3 teams. And last night was, Luton may be the worst team in the league. We'll find that out, particularly away from home. But I thought there was some really positive signs. I thought Hwang was quite good on the left. I know that he doesn't always tick everyone's box. I thought he was good. And yeah, I thought Silva was what we've missed from a striker for a long time. A bit of dynamism. It probably since Silva against Villa. Was the last centre forward performance that I saw like that. So really excited for him to keep playing, especially if they can devise a formation that gets the best out of him and Cunha in the same team. I think that's only going to improve us as well. But yeah, I thought there was plenty of positives.
Nocky, we said it was Luton's strongest team. I think they had one injury, one guy that was injured that didn't play. Otherwise, it was their strongest team. So they're obviously got the nitty-gritty down. They'll probably have one more friendly Saturday, and that'll be their starting team away at Brighton a week on Saturday for them. But this wasn't Wolves' first team. I'm looking at their Kalajdzic, Fabio Silva, Hwang, Traore, Joe Gomez, Nunes, Aït-Nouri, Totti, Kilman, Doherty, Bentley. We could probably see maybe 7 or 8 changes. So does that give us some comfort, really? Or does that show what a Premier League squad should look like after 6 or 7 years? Or am I digging too much for a bit of a positive there?
No, I don't think you're digging too much. I think it is a positive. And, there's been a lot said about the players that we've lost. I mean, I think I'd argue other than Neves, we've not lost anything really to worry about. I think we've kept the spine of the team. It's not a particularly deep squad, which would concern me. I think that we're vulnerable in centre half. I think we're vulnerable up front a little bit as well. And we're definitely vulnerable in the wide attacking areas. But if we were to avoid horrendous injuries and suspensions, I think we've got the nucleus of a very good squad. We have got changes to make. I mean, you would assume it's going to be Cunha and probably one more. I think we may look at a 2 this season. If we do go to a 3, probably going to be Hwang, I would think, who plays out towards the left-hand side. But we've got players there who I think can be dangerous in this division. Whether we've got enough in terms of goals, I think Fabio could hit double figures. I think we'll score more goals than we did last season. Whether it'll be enough in terms of the supply line is yet to be seen. But we've got options there. But it's definitely Cunha and then one other, I would say. I don't see Kalajdzic and Silva getting too much. I would expect it to be Silva playing off Cunha or vice versa, and then Kalajdzic coming on from the bench, really. But there's enough there to be relatively comfortable in terms of a starting 11 and a bench we can field. It's just when the season evolves a little bit and we start losing those players and we start getting those injuries and those suspensions, that's when maybe there'll be a slight concern.
Talked about those chances, Ben, and there were some really good chances, and this is a big positive because people can talk about Luton whoever like. We're talking about a Premier League side now, so if Wolves are creating chances with a mixed sort of bag, it is positive. Kalajdzic, your thoughts? And I know he seems to have split fans, but I wasn't expecting, and then some fans may have seen this differently, I thought he was very, very tidy with the ball. I thought his touches and link play was very good. And it gave Wolves something a little bit different that we hadn't really had for a while.
Yeah, I thought exactly that. I thought he was a good focal point, but I think he's really nice with the ball, uses it well. And look, he's barely played any football for 12 months, so he's going to take a bit of time to get back up to speed. But I think for me, I've been really impressed in how quickly he has looked like he's against a Premier League team, whatever your feelings are on Luton, to look like a striker that can play in the Premier League. I thought it would take him a little bit longer.
First game back after a year.
Exactly. So I think there's plenty of positives. And I think what we need to see, just going on from what Nocky said in terms of the squad, when you haven't got that depth in wide areas, which we haven't, Wolves are going to need to adapt what type of team they are anyway, because the strength is now in through central areas with a player like Nunes. And you saw like Gomez, some of the things he can do with the ball for the through ball for Hwang. So Wolves are going to have to become more of that team anyway, which I think is when you see, you saw the Cunha run towards the end when he bursts through, and he does a lot of stuff centrally as well. And I think that's what you'll probably see from Wolves. I think they will become a side that are a little bit more central, and the build-up will be more like that, just because of what the squad makeup's like. I
mean, looking at that team last night, you could have switched that to a 4-3-3. You could have put Nunes and Boubacar Traoré on either side of João Gomez. You could have had Kalajdzic and Fabio as a 2 and Hwang in behind, or any 3 of that triangle there. So the system is definitely there. It wouldn't take much of a tweak. I want to go through the team and talk about some of the performances a little bit more. We've talked about Kalajdzic, Nocky. I know we talked about him last night. It's someone we're going to take a bit more time, but it's a really good point by Ben that if he's doing that on his first proper game back, that's really promising.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I'm not going to criticise players for missing chances. I mean, he had a decent one in the first half because he reacted well to a loose ball. Keeps closing down, he's put it wide. And then he's had one he should have scored in the second half. But you've got to put it into context of what he's been through. The amount of time he's been out. He'd be desperate to put the ball in the back of the net. That's why he's trying to take the skin off it. So I think his control on the ball is decent. I think he lays it off well. He seems to read the game very well. I think it'll take time, but I want to see him be a little bit more dominant in the attacking areas. I think he was maybe bullied slightly at times by the Luton defence. I want to see him doing that to them. But in saying that, not all the teams in this division have got centre halves the size they've got. I mean, they were massive in all positions on the pitch. But I want to see him be a little bit more physical, a little bit stronger, and just dictate the way that we operate in those attacking areas, and a little bit more in terms of getting into those attacking positions to attack wide balls, albeit we didn't put a great deal in the box for him yesterday. But I definitely saw enough there to think he's a player if an option for us, providing you can keep him fit. And I think we have to treat him with a real careful start, in all honesty. I think we've got to make sure he just gets a little bit here and there and not get too excited with him, because we know he suffers from injuries. But if we keep him fit, then I think there's goals in him, definitely. And there's definitely assists there as well, because you've got that big man, little man. You're playing a Man United or you're playing a Man City and you need to get out, lump one upfield, and you've got a big lad who can hold it up and flick it on. So he'll give us a new dynamic without question.
One thing that really impressed me before we move on to someone else was the way he pressed. I wasn't expecting that. I wasn't expecting the engine and the fitness. I know he's a massive guy, and I guess maybe from watching football late 80s, early 90s, I'm not used to big centre forwards of 6'7", having that mobility. But I didn't actually think he was that static for someone who you would traditionally think would be. So yeah, great energy, great first game back. You can start off on this one, Ben. I know we've talked about it off air. Hwang, I thought of the wide forwards, he was one of the busiest. Well, probably of the forwards, he was probably the busiest one in the first half, but faded a bit in the second. I'm concerned about his quality.
I disagree, actually. I do disagree, and I'm not just talking about finishing, because Wolves as a side don't finish well, but his quality comes from his movement. His movement's really, really good in attacking areas, in my opinion. I feel like that's important for a side like Wolves that don't commit bodies forward naturally, because he finds himself, we've spoke about it loads, like when you look at the goals he scored, no one else in the squad scores them because no one else gets in that area, and he's very clever with his movement. And I thought he was quite direct last night. I thought he ran at players quite well. I thought he linked up on that left side really well with Aït-Nouri. More in the first half, you're right, more in the first half, but even in the second half, he was cutting in, taking shots and getting in good areas. Like, to get in the position he got for the chance that he scuffed from that Gomez through ball, it's really, really good movement. I think he's a good player. But I think he's got to be used correctly. And I do think from that left side, I think you get a lot from him, because he'll put a lot of work in as well. But I'm convinced. I've sort of gone full circle more since Lopetegui's come in, but I've seen real improvement in him, and I still think there's something to work with.
Tyler said this to me, and I think it sums him up. And I think he's been disrespectful. And you sort of hit the nail on the head then in terms of the runs and the space that he finds. Hwang does most of his best work without the ball, because he's a great team player and a great team presser. And if you ask him to do something, he'll do it. He's committed professional. He does a lot of the dirty work. He'll track back. He'll support his fullback. He'll press. So there's never bbeen a question about application of attitude. He's a fantastic pro. I just worry about that final bit of quality. But there was one ball in particular that Kalajdzic absolutely pinged at him when Hwang found himself in front of goal in the first half. I think this was quite late on in the half. Kalajdzic didn't look like he could make that pass, but he's found it and pinged it to him because of Hwang's movement. So yeah, I stand corrected on that. He's very good with his movement, but I just do worry about quality. Nocky, your take on Hwang?
I'm inclined to agree with Ben, in all honesty. I think he's a player that's always going to split opinion, but if we're not going to criticise Sarabia for his miss, we're not going to criticise Kalajdzic for his miss, then you've got to take the same approach with Hwang, because it is still pre-season. They're still finding their feet, and best one in the world, it takes time to get back into it. But I think he's got a lot of energy from that left-hand side, and he drags players out of position. He'll do a lot of the donkey work for other players and allow space to feed in behind him. So I think the position we're in this season, there's definitely a place for him in this squad. In an ideal world, I think we would have upgraded that position. But if we can't upgrade that position, which clearly we can't, I think he's a decent option for us. He will score goals as well. I mean, people forget he hasn't got a horrendous record for Wolves. He's popped up with some really vital goals for us, and he does know where the net is. He's not the sort of player that's going to drop 3 lollipops and lash one in the top corner, but he's the sort of player who will just arrive in the box and finish off those half chances. So I'm comfortable with him being in the team. And I think when you've got the pace of him there, you've got Silva, you've got Cunha, you're going to cause defences all kind of trouble, because there's going to be movement everywhere across your back line, and you're going to need to try and adapt to that. So, yeah, I'm comfortable with him being in the squad. He's not a player I look at and think, I don't want him anywhere near the team.
I mean, would you be surprised if by the end of the season he scored like 6 league gols?
I'd be amazed if he got 6 league goals. I'd be delighted. I don't 6 league goals. So I don't see that, Ben.
But we're going to be a different team this year in that area. I mean, we were very reliant on Neves, weren't we? We played a very specific range of football that we give it to Neves. Neves distributed to the wide positions, and we try to feed it back into the box. I think will be a lot different. You'll see them clever balls from João Gomes like we saw yesterday. You'll see a new way of playing, and we saw it when Neves was suspended for 3 games last season, where we played arguably some of our best stuff. So I think there'll be a different approach to Wolves, and I'd be surprised if Hwang doesn't get 6 or 7 goals this year, because I think he's got that in him.
If he plays the season, he may do, and I would love to be wrong, because if he's scoring goals, it's good for Wolves, and that's what we're all here for, isn't it? What I would say about Hwang and Sarabia, I think I'd want Hwang to play against the teams that are technically better than Wolves to get the work rate, whereas I'd probably want Sarabia, who's probably more technically gifted, that would probably be better at opening up weaker teams. Is that fair?
Are we just writing Neto off in this situation?
Well, I haven't got to Neto yet, but
when does he play?
If you want my opinion on Neto, he got on the end of a goal on the end of one at Porto, but I'm struggling to see what he's done pre-season, Ben. I don't think Neto has ever looked fitter or stronger than he has now. I'm just struggling to see the football that was there before. Yes, he's had 2 bad injuries, and maybe with game time that'll come. I've not seen a lot of it for me though, Ben. But
I trust Hwang ahead of Neto as it stands at the minute.
Yeah, and I mean, I cannot believe I'm agreeing that, but I do. Because with Hwang, like you say, he's direct and he showed that he's got pace and he will push it past people. We don't know where it'll go afterwards, but he will push it and he's direct. What I do like about him with the ball is when he comes and collects deeps, cuts inside and opens it and has a bit of pace. That I do like, and then linking with whether it's Boubacar or linking with João Gomez, I do like that part to his game. But yeah, I know we've gone backwards and forwards a bit, but we'll talk about it when we've done the team. But I'm really worried about Neto. Moving on to but my statement, by the way, is that fair to say we would have Sarabia against teams that we think we can get in points off, whereas opposed to Hwang against teams who it's unlikely? Is that fair?
I'm not sure about Sarabia. I haven't been since he started. We've played him on a wide position. He's not strong enough and he's not fast enough to play there, in my opinion. I think if you're going to play Sarabia, the only place for me he works is probably in a 4-2-3-1, playing in a number 10. Or if you're playing away at a Man United or a Man City or an Arsenal, maybe you go with 1 striker up front and him playing just off. But I don't see him playing anywhere other than a 10. I just don't think he's effective enough, quick enough or strong enough in any other position. He wouldn't be my first choice on the team sheet. I'd love him to prove me wrong and really have a good season. And he might do that. He's had a full pre-season now. He's had plenty of football. So maybe we'll see a different Pablo Sarabia. But for me, I think this league is a big challenge for him. I think he struggles with it. So if you're going to play him, you only play him in a 10 as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I think the wider he plays, the weaker he looks because he's going to get bullied. Whereas if you can find the pockets, he can make things up. And there's no doubt his technical ability. Moving on to Matheus Nunes, Ben. It looks like Lopetegui's made his mind up and he's going to be his narrow right-hand side player, 6'1", fastest central midfielder recorded time in the Premier League last season. Clearly a very good footballer. Love him when he picks the ball up deep and runs. But I think he can, because he's got such an incredible engine, I think he can trust him to sort of support Doherty or Semedo in there. I think it's someone who's growing more and more. I mean, I would love to see him as one of the 2 holding midfielders, but I think we've seen him start every game wide right, Ben. So I think this is it now.
Yeah, I think a big thing for him this summer is the fact that he's essentially the main man now, which he wasn't last year. He was younger than Neves, who he plays international football with, and I think he was a bit overawed by it. And you saw in the games that Neves didn't play, that was when Nunes really shone, and I think we'll see that this season. I think he's looked really good in pre-season. I think he's spoken quite well as well, because he could have had the same attitude that a player like Guedes had in realising this is a very different club to the one he thought he was joining. And at least from the sounds of what he's saying and his performances, he's taken it the right way. And I think he's in for a massive season.
Yeah, I do like him. Noki, I know we had the brilliant goal last year, one of the goals of the season. He had his assist as well, I think, the week after in the home game. It suits him way more on the right-hand side than it does on the left. What's got good potential there is him covering for Doherty, who may, again, I've got the same sort of theory with Hwang as I have with Doherty. I want Doherty against the weaker teams. I want Semedo against the better teams. But back onto Nunes, some good pace. But I want to see him shoot a bit more, Knocker. He's got the legs to open it up. I want to see him pinging that ball, which he can clearly do.
Yeah, I mean, I understand why he's playing wide right, and he's more than capable of doing a job there. Central midfield's probably just about the only position we're actually blessed in at the moment. But I just want to see him in that central midfield position. I just think I really think he could dominate games from that position and really control the tempo. The only issue with that is you've either got to play a three midfield, which doesn't really suit us, or you've got to play a two. So you're losing either Lemina, Gomez, or Traore. So I understand the rationale behind him playing on the right wing. I just really think he's wasted there. But I think that, I want to see more goals from him this season. I think he's capable of doing that. He should be the player that other teams worry about because he can beat players. He's got pace. He can shoot. We found that out against Chelsea. He's got really, really quick feet. I think last season we compared him not in terms of ability, but he carries the ball like a Lionel Messi. He just cruises across the surface. He looks so in control of the football. But he needs more goals. He needs to add that to his game. But he's still a young man. He's still developing. It's his second season.
And he's a late comer to professional football as well.
It's his second season now, so he's had time to really settle. So I think he will stay on the right wing, but I would love to see him get an opportunity inside.
I think what he did to you as well, just one more thing. What he does give you that we've lost with Traore is that he can, particularly, if you're thinking like that first game of the season against Old Trafford when you can't get out, he's got that ability to pick the ball up and travel 50 yards and it just moves you up the pitch, and Wolves haven't got anyone else that does that. Because if you think the amount of times Traore did that, when he'd just get the ball, bobble it past a couple of people and you're forward 60 yards, Nunes has got that sort of capability.
You are listening and watching episode 67 of the Wolves Report with Mirror Football's Ben Husband, club captain Mark Knock, and myself, Ryan Lester. We're just analysing, going through the starting 11, and then we're going to move on to Jeff Shee's letter. We'll give you one centre midfielder each. Knocky, João Gomez, for me, probably wasn't as... I thought he did okay, but from the standards he'd set last season, I'd probably expected a little bit more.
Yeah, he's a young lad, and I think you're going to see dips in form. I think you're going to see a few games where he's absolutely brilliant, a few games where he disappears, but there's real quality there. I mean, we saw that with the ball for Hwang. Give him a decent run of games in that central midfield area, and I've got no concerns about him. I think he's going to be an absolute top-class footballer.
Yeah, it'd be nice to see him if they start the season, whether it's Joe Hodge or Gomez. I'd imagine it'd be Joe Hodge at the moment, judging on that. But I would love to see Gomez in there with Lemina. Ben, moving on to Boubacar Traore. I felt like that guy could probably play another game of football afterwards. He does not stop. He's a guaranteed booking and he's a guaranteed runner. That guy has got some engine on him. I think he's got a great future. He's a little bit raw, but there's a lot to like about Boubacar Traore.
Yeah, I think he's the kind of player that Wolves fans will just fall in love with as well. Similar to the two other centre midfielders in Lemina and João Gomez in the work that they put in. He's got a lot of quality as well on the ball. He's a really nice passer of the ball. But, that's what Wolves fans have got to look forward to, because the midfield, I know it's not going to have Neves, who's, we've spoken about what a wonderful player is. It'll be a lot more dynamic than it was last season. If you think the amount of times we've watched Neves and Matheus trot out, it's like going to be like watching a different sport. With
every single centre midfielder can run with the ball. If there's space in front of them, they can all take the space. And a year ago, we didn't have that.
Well, with that, you can see there's actually, we'll come on to it later, but there's actually been a plan there, which there hasn't always been in other positions, but there's clearly been a profile of midfielder that they want. And you can see that with those three, with all three and four, if you include Nunes, because he's still, as you mentioned, like one of the quickest central midfielders in the Premier League. So there is a definite profile of the kind of players that they are looking for, and that's why it's useful that they are going to be able to sort of go, if Gomez is drifted in a game, you can bring Traore on, and you're not changing the type of midfielder you're bringing on as much as we used to. Which I think will be really helpful, and I think that'll be quite exciting from the centre of the pitch. I really do.
Absolutely, good footballers with incredible engines, and all of them can get forward and get back. So that does change the dynamic massively. It opens up the opportunity for the fullbacks to get forward more, and it should, in theory, open up the opportunity for more goals from centre midfield. So hopefully we'll see that at the start of the season. Give you a fullback each, gentlemen. Ben, start us off with Matt Doherty's performance.
I thought it was exactly what we've come to expect from Doherty. I thought got forward well. I think you're spot on actually with who I would want Doty to play against, who I'd want Semedo to play against, because he's still susceptible defensively, particularly in a 4, and that was against the side that aren't great shakes. I think he's still going to get caught out in that area, but he gets forward, and I actually think it was a really shrewd signing. Like I know it's divided people quite a lot, but I think he brings someone in that's immediately like a leader in the dressing room, knows what knows what it is to play for Wolves, but he knows exactly what's required of him, and particularly in the situation they're in, I think it was a really astute sign, and I think he'll just slot in perfectly, and it gives you 2 different type of right backs to do different things. So yeah, I thought he was good and pretty much what I expected of him.
Yeah, I know we covered it on the space last week, but pretty much what I've done in an article a few days before he did against Celtic. So I was quite pleased. I got some backup of my opinion there, but him getting forward, he's not the quickest, he's not the best defender, but he's got one of the best time runs from a defender, a fullback I've seen, and he just has that knack of getting in the space. So hopefully more to come. Noki, Ain't Nori, maybe leaving, might not be leaving, but what a talented footballer Ain't Nori is.
Yeah, I've said it before. I think he's our best left back. I think he's the best option we've got there. Big fan of Hugo Bueno, but I think that Ain't Nori's ahead of him at the moment. He does give the ball away, he does make a couple of errors every now and then, but I think he's positive, he drives forward, he can get you into attacking areas, and he can find a pass as well. So I'd be really disappointed if we sold him, especially when we're a little bit weak in that area. I mean, you lose him, then you're kind of reliant on only Totti and Bueno, aren't you, for the rest of the season? So
we haven't sold Johnny yet either. So if Johnny doesn't go, then
he's had no involvement as in pre-season. So even if he was to stay, he's not going to offer you anything. So I'd love to see him stay, but suspicion is he may well still go. Although he has been used a little bit more than I thought he would.
You're just selling Ain't Nori at a low price as well. It just wouldn't make sense.
No,
I think you could get a lot more for him than Wolves would get this summer.
Not only that with Ain't Nori, but I mean, this is putting Neto even further back. I think he's a genuine option on the left-hand side going forward. He can beat anybody. The step overs, the cut inside he does with his left foot, the way he managed to drag the ball inside. He can play anywhere on that left-hand side. I'd be comfortable with if he played left midfield or left back.
He's a talented player. I mean, if he wasn't at Wolves, you'd want him to be at Wolves because he's got all those attributes that you look for in a wing-back or a full-back or an attacking player. So it's nonsensical to me to even consider selling him. I don't see the thought process behind it.
Yeah, just the last point I wanted to make, because I think both of our left backs, to me, look better than Ryan Giles. So I think it vindicates. If you keep Ain't Nori, then to me it vindicates the decision. However little you think Wolves got, but Luton was still the only team that came in. If another team would have came in with 10 million, they'd have sold him for 10 million. So
I don't think there's any question that Ryan Giles delivers a fantastic football. He takes a nice corner. He puts a lovely in-swinging cross in. But we knew that. But equally, is he the athlete and is he the defender of the 2 defenders you mentioned? I don't think
he's a great signing. Sorry, Roy, I don't mean to jump over you. He's a great signing for Luton because their whole philosophy this season is going to be to try and get the ball in the box from wide positions and swing it towards the big lads up front. So for them, I think he's a phenomenal signing at 5 million for a Premier League player. I think that's a great bit of business for them. From our point of view, I don't think he would have got a sniff at Wolves. Yes, he's good at set pieces. Yes, he can cross the ball. And maybe when you've got someone like Kalajdzic, that would be useful. But I don't think he offers enough defensively. I don't think you can rely on him in those positions to make it a sensible decision to keep him. So I think the deal works for us, it works for Luton, and it definitely works for Giles. So it was the right move, in my opinion.
Yeah, totally agreed. We'll keep with you, Noki. We're talking about Tyler's favourite player now in Toti Gomez, who I have to say was probably one of Wolves' more solid players last night. I mean, there was a lot of solid performances, but I thought Toti was almost faultless last night.
Yeah, I like Toti. I know Tyler's not the biggest fan in the world, but he's very erratic. You don't really know.
Are his movements erratic or is his play erratic?
I think
he doesn't tend to make a lot of mistakes.
But I think he doesn't make a lot of obvious mistakes, but I do think he gets caught out. If you look at some of the balls over the top, it's generally him that it's fizzing over the top of because he's got his positional sense wrong. So I think as a third option, as a centre-back, I'm comfortable with that. But he's still definitely behind Kilman and Dawson. He's a decent player. I think he will be a good bottom half Premier League player. I don't see him any higher than that, really. I think he offers you a lot of strength. He's fun. He's good to watch. He'll get forward. He's very, very
not slow either.
and he's not slow at all. But I think he's limited in terms of what he offers us. But I'm comfortable with him as part of the squad.
Any player who's described as limited that scores winners against Aston Villa is fine by me.
Joe Mason for one.
Joe Mason, there we go. It's against the Blues, wasn't it? Or against the Villa as well. No, against them both. Max Kilman, Ben, Captain Max, cool, calm, won his headers, had a fantastic battle with a 14-foot, 25-stone giant, managed him quite well, but solid from Max.
Yeah. It's difficult to take too much away from pre-season matches. I struggle to most of the time because I think the majority of it is just fitness and just running out. He's a good player. I think he's better alongside an experienced defender, which I think he's better when Dawson plays. I think the same would probably be for Totti as well. If he was alongside Dawson all the time, I think he'd become a better defender as well. If you're asking me whether I think he's worth what Wolves have reportedly rejected, I think that's a different question. But I think he's a good player, a solid player. I don't think he's any more than a good player.
Last but not least, Bentley. I'll talk about Bentley. Don't think he really had a lot to do. There's a couple of goals that went in from offsides. Not sure he could do much about that. Seems like a really good character. Bought for like 49 grand. A solid backup for me. Someone that I think did okay in the games he played last year. So I know there was talk of if they got the right money, Jose Sa would go. I don't see that happening now at this stage, particularly with Jeff's letter that we'll talk about. I'm not going to talk about the substitutes because the game sort of, for me, when you make that many changes, it died and you can't really judge it. I was critical of some of the subs that come on, but I've got to say it is a pre-season friendly and you can't expect to make 5 changes in one go in the game to be as fluent when Wolves were dominating and they were knocking on the door. This afternoon, as I was preparing for the show and doing my graphics and making the plan, Jeff Shee, with some awful timing, dropped a letter out explaining Wolves' current situation regarding finances, regarding transfers, regarding this summer, regarding financial fair play. So it's only right we bring in the national writer on this. We've spent our summer budget on this week. Ben, your take on Jeff Shee's letter to the fans?
To me, it's just so transparent. Like Jeff Shee and Fosun are desperate to people please in a way that doesn't ever go beyond meaningless PR. And that letter is just 1,000 words of meaningless PR. It's no different to what has been briefed to journalists all summer, just in slightly flowery words and a terrible cliche at the end of it. The numbers still don't stack up on what they're trying to say. I don't think the punishments are going to be harsh enough to potentially
warrant the safety.
Wolves being in the Premier League anyway. You might get a big fine. They're just not going to relegate teams for stuff like that because you'd never get it through like court of arbitration, things like that. I mean, you look at when Man City got done by UEFA, it just goes through appeal after appeal after appeal, and eventually it'll get turned down. That these things never actually materialise, and Wolves have got a perfect excuse to sit behind it, in my opinion. And look, that's people have wanted Jeff to talk, haven't they? And he's talked, so congratulations. But there's just some lines in it that to me are just ridiculous. After a longer stay in the Premier League, we are now at a stage where we must pay even closer attention to FFP. They should have been doing that anyway. If they're a multi-million-pound corporation and an investment conglomerate all over the world and they're not looking at their finances, then it's just not true. I don't see how what they're saying just doesn't add up for me. But yeah, he's done a nice letter, and if we don't win, then we learn. So whatever that means.
Couple of things on that, Ben. There's been lots of talk of takeovers and stuff like that, and although some people would want a takeover, Fosun have given Wolves the best time we've had in a very long time, and I am grateful for that. And I think we're all grateful for that. There's no question about it. I think we'd have known from the circles that we're in if Wolves were up for sale, because you don't keep those things a secret. So, but to hear the chairman say, I think gives not enough to get excited about, but it does give a little bit of stability. This is us. We're here to stay. At least we know where we're at. I mean, you might disagree with that, Ben, but people need a bit of a comfort and a bit of a cuddle. Maybe that's what it was for. Stop messaging me swear words, Ben. Nocky, your take on Jeff Shee's poetry this afternoon?
I think you might as well just shred that letter, if I'm being honest. It was purely about telling people what they want to hear. Wolves aren't up for sale. I guarantee someone came up with a decent offer with Wolves would sell us tomorrow, because we're a little bit of a drain on them at the moment, I think. Look, Fosun have been absolutely fantastic for us. They've put us in this division. They've kept us here. They've given us some fantastic moments. Give us a European run, which I never thought I'd see. But I think I can see through the letter, if I'm being honest. I think there's a lot of excuses being made. We talk about FFP and all this stuff. I mean, look at Chelsea's position now. They spent, 600 million? They're still buying players now. So have they been better at structuring payments than we have? Or is it just another excuse? I think that it's clear that they wanted to make a profit this year, so that's fine if they're coming out and being honest about that. I'm comfortable with it as long as we know where they are. But it's all right saying we're still backing Wolves, we still want to be behind Wolves. Wolves are going to be worth a lot less money if we get relegated, and if we start the season and we start poorly, which I kind of expect us to do based on the fixtures we've got, you're only then a couple of injuries away with the squad size we've got from it turning into a catastrophic situation, similar to what we had last year when we had to bring in a Diego Costa just to try and give us something in that position because we had absolutely nothing else. So I think the letter's rubbish, if I'm being honest. I think it's purely out there because there's been a big kickback that the season ticket prices have gone up. The prices of games now, people on the season ticket waiting list, you're talking 60 odd quid now if you want to sit in the top tier of the Billy Wright for a Category A game. So I just think it's a PR stunt. We'll throw this letter out there. We'll hope that they're daft enough to lap it all up, and we'll dangle a few carrots for the future. It's going to be better next summer. Okay, but I don't believe the letter, if I'm being honest. I think it's purely PR stunt.
So the question, I mean, there was a lot of padded out stuff, in my opinion, without telling us. It tried to tell us lots of stuff without telling us everything. Why are we in this situation? So when the accounts come out, two things are going to be revealed. Wolves didn't lose 80 million. It'll tell us they did or they didn't. Or it will also tell us that for 12 months we were horrendously run and paid for some bad decisions. There's one of those two things that are going to come out. Like you said, Nocky, I don't mind if Wolves want to make a profit. They had to overspend in January. One, to appease the Lopetegui because he obviously wanted a budget. I think other than Alex Scott, who was supposed to sign in January, he didn't come. Other than that, he got who he wanted. And Wolves had to protect their investment because without Dawson, without Lamina, Wolves would have probably got relegated and relegated with a few games to go. Those guys were absolutely pivotal, as well as the manager in keeping Wolves up. So I understand the need to claw back some cash if you want to get the balance sheet right. I get that. I accept it. They're not, as Sir Jack would say, a golden teat. They don't have to pump in endless money. That's fine. But I would like the club to be run really well. And at the moment, with that letter, it would suggest that there's been mistakes. Now, you can't nail every signing. I don't expect that to happen. But if you compare Wolves spending to other clubs, as Ben says, it doesn't feel right to me. And I'm struggling until I see the maths myself to put that letter and the maths together. I might be wrong, and I'll hold my hands up and say, but something just doesn't feel right. He's appeased the fans. He's put the letter out. I mean, I respect that him doing that. We don't really know anything different. Matt Hobbs had suggested a couple of weeks ago that Wolves need to make a profit this window. What's that profit? How much do we need to make? I kind of get that we're not going to tell people that, because if we are going to sign anyone else this window, which I've got to be honest, looks really unlikely, and you and Tyler both called it in one of your misery chats in the morning. So it's a tough one. It's a lot to swallow. I agree with what you said, Ben, and I agree with what you said as well, Nocky. But just going on from
more to it, though. There's got to be.
There does feel more to it.
I mean, if you look at, we've got a deal in place for Alex Scott, all agreed, and then we find out that if that had have actually got pushed through financially, we couldn't afford to do that deal. So
I don't believe Wolves can't. It's a decision, Nocky. It isn't Wolves can't afford it, because the basics of financial fair play and what we've sold would have allowed Wolves to spend 100 million plus this season.
Someone's culpable for that, though, aren't they? Someone's making crass, stupid errors that aren't getting picked up. And I think the issue we've got is we're not really getting transparency from the club. We're getting mixed messages. I think I'd like to see more from local journalists. I don't think anyone's pushing this. I think there's I think there's a bit of line towing going on, if I'm being honest. I think I want to see a little bit more pressure put on to find out how we've ended up in this situation. It just feels like they're feeding us this, we're accepting it, and then away we go. We'll still support the team regardless. But if they were honest with us, we still support the team regardless because it's our football club. But I just think there's been so many. It's just so cloak and dagger at the moment. We know a lot of signings didn't work. I understand we spent a lot of money last year to stay up. But if we're in this position again in January and we've got 9 points going into Christmas, are we not going to do anything then as well? Are we just going to let ourselves fall off a cliff? And we've got a top class manager who did a phenomenal job for us last season. I'd be amazed if he's still here at the end of the season because someone's going to come in for him based on the situation we're in.
I mean, I don't know in terms of the bonuses and the wages. I believe he's paid a huge amount of money. I've heard 8 million, I've heard 9 million, I've heard 13 million with bonuses. Who knows? But he kept Wolves up. They were on, 9 points before Boxing Day and ended up staying up with a few games to go. So he deserves credit. And for me, he deserves backing. It does feel like a club decision to save money. And I get that because, no, you can't expect any owner just to keep pumping their own money. It's unrealistic. So I get it. But we don't know what the hole is, what we can spend. At the moment, we've bought in, no disrespect to them, we've bought in 2 free transfers, like a League One or League Two experienced keeper and a player that's been released twice within 6 months. Now, King may come good, and I hope he does. He seems like a good character, and it seems like people like him. That's fine. And Doherty seems to, if we're going to use the fullbacks going high, he's going to fit as well. So that might be 2 shrewd bits of business. But the most frustrating thing for me, Ben, is I think Wolves are really close to having a decent team. This team that started now is so much far ahead of where the team that started, other than Neves, at Leeds. But it's a different dynamic. The mobile midfielders, box to box. Wolves are probably 2 good players off having a really good side.
Yeah, and I feel sorry for Lopetegui and I feel sorry for Matt Hobbs because they've unfortunately come at the end of a period of time with disastrous decision makers on the football side that got lucky at the start because they had a relationship with an agent, and as soon as that well ran dry, they stretched and reached for players that weren't worth their value with no real plan ahead, and thought that you could keep one team forever, and that, you know, there's a line about.
Yeah, Ben did tell me that he was going to get kicked out.
Jeff's kicked him off.
Yeah, Jeff's kicked him out. Knocky's next. It'll just be me. Then my door will knock and it'll be all over. So, Knocky, just going on. Then, where were we? I've lost myself and I've lost Ben. It's upset me too much.
Yeah, I think we look at the whole situation with Jeff Shee, and I think maybe there's an element that we want to keep the stadium full. Maybe we want to make sure that we've got bums on seats. But we're all adults. If you're honest with what the plan is, if you're honest and manage expectations, and if that letter comes out and if it's more honest and it feels more honest, I'm comfortable with it. If this is the season we're going to have, this is the team we've got, I'm fine with that if that's what we're going to do, if we've got that clear direction. But when it feels very much like you're being fed a carrot, and if you behave now, next season it'll be so much more. It'll be so much better. We'll spend lots of money. I don't need to hear that. I just need to know, why are we in the brown stuff? How did we get here? Who put us here? And how do we get out of it? That's, as a supporter, that's all you really want to know. I don't want the club spending 400 million and putting ourselves in financial ruin. I want us to be sensible. I want us to be sustainable. But I also feel that a club earning the amount of money we earn in this division should have enough spending power to not just bring in 2 free transfers and hope that's going to be enough for the season.
Yeah, that doesn't feel right. Now, this might be unfortunate timing, but why are we getting so close to signing players like Alex Scott? This financial situation hasn't snuck up on us. Why weren't people informed this before they bought their season tickets? 6% rise or round. I understand that every team's going to put their prices up. I understand the market. I understand. I get it. Now, I put out a tweet. I got some criticism. It works out for my season ticket, £33 a game. That's not too bad behind the goal. £33 more than away games. I think that's okay. However, the Billy Wright and the other prices seem very, very expensive. In comparison to some others, it's not quite as bad, but football's very expensive now. And for a team that scored 31 goals last season to be not signing a single player for money going into a new season with a 6% pay rise doesn't feel great to me. It doesn't feel like a good look, Ben.
No, it's not. And a lot of these problems, however, ticket price ranting goes down if the team is successful, but the team aren't successful at the moment. Compared to previous times, yes, we can say, well, 10 years ago they were in League One and now they're in the Premier League and we're moaning about the fact that they probably won't finish in the top half for the third straight year. But we're now paying a premium to watch a side that aren't being ambitious, but people are being made to feel like they need to pay ambitiously to watch them. And that's the impression that it gives off. And I think it's difficult for them to say before people get season tickets. And also they know that people would get them anyway. And I genuinely don't think they would have released this letter unless there had been the kind of backlash that there's been on social media of people telling him to release a statement and to do some type of communication to the fans, because I don't think they think it's required, in my opinion. It is, but there was nothing clarified in there. And I mentioned it before we came on air, but if there was such a massive issue, they would be cashing in on players like Kilman. They wouldn't be sanctioning loans for Guedes. They'd be looking at loans with options to buy next year, like we did in the Championship, to get around the same sort of issues. But that's not even, if this happens in the next 3 weeks, then fine, we can have a different discussion. But it seems that Wolves are hiding behind something that's easily dismissible.
Yeah, I don't think we've seen the whole picture. I think there's a couple of things missing. We'll only find out when the accounts are out of what actually it looks like, how good or bad. If it's the reported 70 or 80 million loss, we shall see. Apologies if anyone can hear my dog snoring in the background. It's only my dog. He's had a long day today. You are listening to and watching episode 67 of the Wolves Report with Mirror Football and Sports Ben Husband, club captain Mark Knock, and myself, Ryan Lester. Now, the reason I left out Fabio Silva of the team report is because I knew that was going to be quite a negative conversation. So I'm going to bring on to a positive. I want to talk about Fabio Silva and give him a bit more airtime than everyone else. I know Ben absolutely loves Fabio Silva. Ben's been in love with Fabio Silva for a long time. We've talked about Fabio Silva a lot. He's gone away. He's done his business last season. He looks like he spent a lot of time in the gym putting some muscle on. He's mobile. His movement's good. He's strong. He had his name chanted. The relationship in the stand. The difference between a quiet atmosphere and an all right atmosphere last night was Fabio Silva. The interaction with the South Bank, the clapping, it gave Wolves a little bit of hope that Golden Boy actually could be delivering this season. Ben Husband, tell me about Fabio Silva.
I'll start by saying he turned 21 2 weeks ago. And if he's developing and he looks a bit stronger and a bit more muscular, it's because he's essentially becoming an adult, which when he came to Wolves, he was a teenager. And I've spoke about him for the last 2 years, and I still haven't seen a better performance from a centre forward since than the one he put in against Villa. And I think he'll score goals. I think he looks more confident. And again, similar to what I said about Nunes, I think it'll be a completely different experience for him if he can feel like he's the main man at Wolves now and not filling in for Jimenez when Jimenez needs a rest and when he's picked up a knock. And this is it now for him. And I would be absolutely gutted if Wolves cashed in, because I think there's a really, really good player there. And I think he could be in for a huge season if we played to his skills. And that's what you should do. Because if you can find a striker that's capable of scoring goals, it's everything. That's the whole reason Wolves were good with Jimenez, because they managed to find a striker that hadn't scored goals previously, and he became a brilliant Premier League striker. So Wolves have to bank that they've got another one. And I think I genuinely think, you're talking if he's 21, if he scores 15 goals, he'd be in the running for like Young Player of the Year, because he's still in that sort of bracket. So let's give him a bit of time. The England under 21 winner that we sold last summer is 23 and a half. So he's another 2.5 years on Gibbs White than Silva. So I think there's plenty of room to grow still. And I think Wolves just need to make sure that he's still a Wolves player on the 2nd of September.
Come I mean, as the pre-season so far as Nocky, and some may say I'm exaggerating, that performance last night from Fabio Silva was the best performance I'd seen from a player this pre-season. Now, I'm not saying that Wolves have been brilliant. There was loads of contenders, but it was a mature. He didn't look like a player that was sulking. He looked like he wanted to play. Relentless pressing, some nice touches round the corner. He ran with the ball. He linked the play. I'm very excited about a possibility of a Acuna and a Fabio Silva partnership.
Yeah, I thought he was really direct. Everything good that we did came through Fabio. We had a spell just before the substitutions came on when we were really putting pressure on Luton. It was all through Silva. He was turning, driving in a goal, shooting. I mean, all right, one went over the bar, one forced a good save from the keeper, but he just looked a proper player to me. I mean, the first thing I'd do is give him the number 9 shirt. I'd give him that shirt and let him know that you're the main man at this football club now, because you could tell we had a corner in the second half and you could tell Wolves fans singing his name meant so much to him. He turned during the games, clapped the fans, and then at the end he stood on the edge of the area and looked with a look of awe about him, the fact that the South Bank are singing his name. So if he can feel loved, if we give him that shirt, if we tell him that you're the main man for us along with Kuna, I'm with Ben. I think he scores goals for us this season. I think he's got that edge about him, and he showed signs of it, you know, a couple of seasons ago when
the game as Ben said, against Tyrone Mings in the Villa game.
Yeah, he tore Tyrone Mings apart. He scored a really good goal against the Albion as well, where he shoved the defender off and rolled it in the bottom corner. He's a talented player. I mean, a penalty against Burnley, I think it was, in the, you know, when he drilled it in the bottom corner under real pressure. There's something about this kid that I think that he's got a real feel of Jimenez about him. He's just got that intelligence and that movement, and he picked out a great pass against Celtic which released Doc when he was brought down for the penalty. And we can't sell him. We absolutely can't sell him. I mean, we couldn't replace him if we did sell him, so it would be ludicrous to get rid of him. But you play Fabio this season alongside Cunha and you get the wide players right, I think he hits double figures comfortably for us this season.
There's a lot of love going on Fabio Silva, and I know he splits the fan base, and I know people are judging him on his £35 million tag. He didn't choose that. As Ben said, he's just turned 21 now, is he? He's just turned 21. If he'd have played, he'd have had the season he had in Holland the second half of the season, and we were linked with him, we'd want that player. Even at Anderlecht, we'd want the goals he was scoring, the assists he was making, the things he was doing. Football's better when you've got a hero, and Wolves have got a lot of players there. I know Mario Lemina's got some songs about him and that, but when you've got a young talent that you can get excited about, it makes you excited about going to games. It makes the atmosphere better. And in Fabio Silva, don't think that would have gone unnoticed last night in terms of the custodians at Wolves, how popular he is after that performance. So any thoughts on selling him that they make, because the team looks more fun. It looks like there's more goals, there's more entertainment. The way he brought Hwang, he brought Ait Nouri, he fed Doherty, did a little bit with Kalajdzic, a little 1-2 in the second half. I like Fabio Silva, and I think we all do on here. And there is no reason why he shouldn't be starting the season. In the minutes he's had, I think he's done more than, I know we talked about Sarabia playing in the 10. I think he's got way more to offer than Sarabia in terms of mobility and the future as well. And Fosun are an investment company. If, as Ben says, if he gets double figures this year, as you said as well, Nocky, then big teams will come knocking on the door for that talent, because he's clearly a very, very talented footballer. I don't know if he'll start at Old Trafford, but equally, I think the manager's starting to realise that Kuna isn't a number 9, and it's going to keep coming back. He's better coming a little bit deeper and collecting. I want to see them two linking up. There's two football brains. There's two slightly different players. They can both run with the ball. They can both take it in turns dropping in. I think there's a partnership to be had there, and I hope we see it. And Kalajdzic is going to take a little bit longer to build up, probably another month till he's probably ready for a full Premier League battle. But for me, guys, Fabio Silva has got to be starting the season soon.
But I think if you look financially as well, they are an investment company. You sell Silva now, you're going to get 20, maybe 25 million.
Probably 20 million euros, yeah.
He bangs in 15 goals this season in all competitions. You could be knocking back bids of 70 million in 12 months, because they'll look at a player of his age, very early 20s, developing. You'll have a lot of big bids coming in for him in 12 months if he develops the way he does. And if he doesn't develop and he doesn't have a great season, we'll still get 20 million for him at the end of next season. So
yeah, he'll retain some of his value.
To get rid of him now.
Well, I think worst case scenario, if he was to play regularly, is he scores 7, 8 goals, and he's still going to be a 22-year-old that's played a lot of Premier League football, and that they'll still get money for him. But I think what he has that no one else in the squad seems to have is that he shoots, and he takes a lot of efforts, and that's what Wolves need. That the one chance that he put over the bar really reminded me of Jimenez's goal against Chelsea, like the first year of the Prem. Just
did the keeper save that, or was it? Did he put it over?
No, he put one over and then had the other one that the keeper saved. But yeah, he does have a bit of Jimenez to me, and I just think they need to just let him become what he can become.
Yeah, Wolves look for a team that's shy of goals. We've got a young forward that likes shooting. And as I said, I don't mind when players miss chances. What worries me is when we don't get any chances. And if Wolves did create chances last night, and a lot of it was through Fabio Silva. You're listening to and watching episode 67 of the Wolves Report with Mirror Football, Ben Husband, the club captain Martin Knock, and myself, Ryan Lester. Quite a long show tonight. Appreciate your time, gentlemen. Let's take a few questions before we move quickly on to Saturday's game. Let's go first up to Graham. Thank you for your question, Graham. Graham asks, what do you think Wolves will be in a position to next strengthen the squad? Great question. I'll answer that quickly, give my opinion on that. I'm struggling to see another signing this summer now after what's said. I think that letter's been set out to prepare you for the worst. It's a dangerous strategy. As I think Ben mentioned that to me on a message earlier on, and maybe they'll see where they're at in January if they need to reinvest. Nocky.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we'll sign anyone else this season. If we do, it will be kids to go into the youth team, or it'll be a free transfer. But my suspicion is we won't sign anyone. If we're really in the brown stuff at Christmas, you may see us dip into the market then, but realistically, probably 12 months.
Let's fire through these questions. Graham J, thank you for your questions. I ask people for questions weekly, usually on Twitter. I'll take what I can and get as many as I can on the show. Chris Chisnell asks, what areas of the pitch do you think are stronger in now than versus the opening game of last season? Ben, I think we're in agreement on this. Probably other than Neves, the team's pretty much strong. Would you say the team's stronger pretty much all over?
Yeah. I think central midfield, they're much stronger. As a unit, I think they're a better unit. I think the arrival of Dawson makes them better in the centre of defence. Yeah, the only area that we're weaker is out wide, both sides, really, when you lose Pedence and Traoré without really replacing them. So, because I think they're still stronger as a central striker, because I think current Fabio Silva is better than what Raul Jimenez was in his last year at Wolves. So, strangely, mostly all over the pitch, just not on the bench.
Yeah, it's definitely a strong 11. Chris, thank you very much for your question. This is a group chat, this next one. Adrian asks, can see another bottom half finish. Who do you think will go down? Some of the pundits have us. Great question. Love a bit talking about whether to put ourselves on the line here and get shot. You've got to point out, guys, probably the 3 team that came up, but we did that last year and didn't do too bad. You would, though, Nocky, probably look at the 3 teams that have come up straight back up, or is there anyone else?
I think Burnley will be okay. I think Luton will go. I think Sheffield United are really going to struggle. I've got a little sneaky for Fulham as well. That'll be my outsider, would be Fulham or maybe Nottingham Forest. I think we will be bottom half, but I hope we've got enough to stay clear of it. But got a little sneaky for Fulham this year.
Yeah, my outside one to get dragged in will be Brentford. And a lot of people were saying, what are you talking about? I thought Brentford had a good start to last season, but then had a lot of close games with probably a couple of wins they probably shouldn't have got as the season went on. I might be wrong. Bringing Wolves into that, signing no one else. I said 12th before. I'm probably going to take that down now. So it's probably 13th, 14th if we aren't signing anybody else. But I do think Wolves will be okay. Ben?
Luton, Sheffield United, and then I do also fear for Fulham. I think Fulham or Palace. I think take your pick of one of them two. I think Palace are getting weaker, especially if
Elise is going as well, isn't he?
Yeah, if he goes, I think they're going to really struggle. I'm not sure how well Hodgson will continue doing what he did at the
end.
No
Zaha, no Elise. That's 2 big losses.
Yeah, I think they'll really struggle. I think Burnley will be good, actually.
I think they'll be top half, I do.
I think
Top 10.
that'll surprise a lot of people. And I think Wolves will be 13th, 14th, what Wolves have now become, essentially.
This is quite a funny question. Greg asks, Greg, what the fick, I think he says there, is going on. Greg, a regular contributor to the Wolves report. Greg was ever so angry on the space the other night, and great Wolves fan. I hope we've covered a lot of that for you tonight, Greg.
I did tell him it'd get worse before it got better, though.
Thanks for nothing like the truth from Nocky to inspire your summer. I don't know if that letter's appeased you or not, Greg. I'm trying to bring some positives. That's why I spent so long talking about Fabio Silva, but hopefully see you at a game soon, Greg. I think that's it for the questions. We've done an hour so far. You can contribute to the show, and thank you for all the contributions. I've had loads. I couldn't get them all on because we're running out of time, but I'll drop them on Twitter. Respond to that. We'll get on as many as we can. We've got a game on Saturday against Stade Rennais. You would imagine, Ben, that the starting 11 for this would be the starting 11 for Man United. So talk me through with you and Nocky then. I want to hear your starting 11 for Wolverhampton Wanderers v Stade Rennais, who beat West Ham 3-1 and slapped Forest 5-0. This is going to be a test.
Yeah, so keepers obviously Sarr. Nori left back, Semedo right back, Dawson and Kilman centre half. If Lemina's fit, he'll play. I think they'll probably leave him out if he's unwell. He was unwell last night, so Nocky, feel free to chip in because this is where I get confused now.
I think if we go, are we talking 4-3-3? We're assuming 4-3-3.
Well, that's up to you guys.
I'd like to see 4-4-2.
I think he's stuck with that all pre-season. I'll be surprised if it's not a variation of 4-4-2 that's slightly lopsided.
Yeah, I'd like to go, if everyone's fit, Lemina, Gomez, central midfield. I'm probably starting Hwang on the left or Neto. It's one of the two. I think it'll probably be Hwang. Up front, it'll be Cunha and Silva interchanging. I'd like to see Silva in the 9 and Cunha in the 10 to start with. And then right wing, it's going to have to be Nunes, isn't it? Ideally, I'll put Nunes in central midfield, but I think we're lacking options on the right side, so it'll probably be Nunes.
I think with the way, if you're prepping a team to go and play at Old Trafford, I think you want as many legs as possible. I've talked about this with Tyler, and he does like Sarabia, and I appreciate what a good footballer is. I don't think that's a player that you want to be going to Old Trafford. I need players that can track back. Hwang, although he concerns me in terms of setting things up, I think you could trust him to protect Bueno or Aït-Nouri. Nunes, he's going to come back and he's going to protect Semedo. I know we are looking at talking about more protecting your defenders than going forward, but Stade Rennais have had a great pre-season. That's going to be a massive test, but the test at Old Trafford is going to be huge. So I want as much mobility and strength in the team. And for me, I don't think Sarabia is that player. I'm not even sure if I want Sarabia at home to Brighton, to be honest, but he's fantastically talented. But
he's talented, but he doesn't offer enough, does he? Let's be completely honest about it. He's all right having quick feet, but he gets bullied, he gets knocked off play. You can't play him in wide positions. He's limited to where he can play. So, yes, he's a tidy footballer, but Brighton Bakari was a tidy footballer and he wasn't good enough at this level either. So, for me, I think he stays in the squad because of the numbers we've got, but he's a long way down the pecking order for me.
Ben, Nocky suggested it then. Do we think now we're at a stage when we could see Matheus Nunes and Fabio Silva partner each other next weekend?
That's what I'd like. I don't think it will be that. I've just got a feeling that it'll end up going 4-3-3 and it'll be Cunha, Hwang and Nunes and then Lemina, Gomez and one other. Maybe Traore, maybe Hodge. And
sorry to jump in. Do you think then he'd go against the formation he's used all pre-season for the start of the season?
I think so. I can't see a situation where he goes to Old Trafford and has Silva, Cunha, Nunes and Hwang in a team. Personally, I don't see him doing that. Without Nori as a fullback that's quite attacking, I cannot see him going with that considering how negative we have been away from home under him, I think it would be a massive. And I realise that's what he's playing pre-season, but we could, because it's the only football we get. We read a lot into it. I would be surprised personally if there's anything other than 4-3-3 with Cunha up top by himself. I know that isn't what I want. That isn't what I want at all, because I don't think that's how they get the best out of half the team. But that's just what I think we'll probably see, in my opinion.
From the start there, we're restricting Cunha from the off then, because...
I think that's not the best. I think that would be... I'm not saying that's what I want at all. I think that would be a bad mistake, but that's just what I think he'll line up.
Thank you to everyone for joining us for this week's season opener, episode 67 of the Wolves Report. Thank you to club captain Mark Knock, and thank you, much appreciated, to Mirror Footballs and Mirror Sports Ben Husband. Hopefully we'll join you again next week after our huge test against Stade Rennais on Saturday at Molineux, and then we'll have the next podcast, maybe a space as well if there's any more action we can talk about, but hopefully we'll join us next week for the next Wolves Report. Thank you for joining us. Up the Wolves.